Alright folks, Chapter 5, Creative and Expressive Play. This looks like it's going to be another relatively short one, but I guess it all depends on how much I ramble on. So I'll try to keep it relatively short. Alright, so you've got the objectives, what they're trying to accomplish in this chapter. And then they talk about self-defining play. And that just means, the player is kind of projecting his personality. He's being who he wants to be. If I want to be a big sword wielding dude, I don't want to play a game that's, Barbie blah, that kind of stuff. Some games do this really well. I hate to give Cryptic any props, but as a company, their avatar design and customization is really incredible. Like in Star Trek Online, if you've ever touched it, it's a free-to-play game online. Not a great game, but the character customization, it lets you create really any kind of alien that you want to make. This is something you also have to be very careful with. When you're making an MMO and there's a bunch of different parts where your character is being shown, maybe in cut shots or things like that, the more customization you allow, the more programming that goes into all these other things where your character is going to be appearing. So if you have too much customization, it creates too much work later on down the road, or a lot more work down the road. If you have too little customization, then some people will not play your game, just because they don't like, that my character can't be who I want it to be. So here's one example of that. Terra Online is an MMO, and they released a new class, or two new classes, and they're gender locked, meaning if I want to be the gunner, I have to be a female. So obviously you can see kind of the rage from some people, like, hey, I hate playing female characters, when I'm a male, blah blah blah. So depending on the game, avatar selection is pretty important. In a game like Monopoly, obviously the kids always fight to be the car and stuff. Nobody wants to be the boot or the teapot or whatever it is. But in computer games, at the minimum, you should have a male and a female version of your character, so that people can pick between the two. There are a lot of guys that like playing female characters. And you may think that's pervy, and I guess in some cases it probably is. But in the old days, and I'm talking maybe about 10 years ago, when you picked your avatar would have a hitbox associated with it. So a lot of guys in shooter games would pick a female avatar because the hitbox was smaller, meaning there was a smaller box to shoot in that actually affected the character. So a lot of the characters were female. And that was like really the start of men playing female characters, I think. So I prefer to think of men playing female characters as old school gamers that were going for the hitbox and not as perverts, but I could be wrong. Alright, so there's functional attributes, and the functional attributes can be defined into two classes: characterization attributes and status attributes. Your characterization attributes typically don't change, and if they do, they change very slowly. One example of this is if you play Star Wars: The Old Republic. Your character can get light side or dark side points. And if your character gets dark side points, by the time he's level 50, his face can look, all very dark around the eyes and big veins sticking out of his face, just like the Emperor. So, but that change occurs very slowly to the character, depending on what he does through those first 50 levels. Whereas status attributes, those are like, hit points, armor class, that kind of stuff. So every level, those are changing frequently. Other examples of characterization attributes, if I pick an elf, I'm better with magic than a human would be. Or if I pick a dwarf, they're harder to hit. Stuff like that. Those character attributes don't typically change. And some people pick a character based on themselves. Like if I'm kind of skinny and wiry, I may pick an elf because it looks more like me, or the body type looks more like mine. Whereas other people might pick a character that they'd want to be. Maybe in life they're overweight, they're not happy with things, and they don't have a lot of friends, but in the game they play a very attractive person that everybody that's in a guild and talks to a lot of people. So it kind of goes both ways. So you really got to spend some time if you're making a game, especially for PC or Xbox or something, on the characterization part. How to build the characters, what the avatars are going to look like, and what abilities they're going to have. All right, other functional abilities. Alright, the book says allowing players to set all functional attribute values may introduce bugs. And not only bugs, but a lot of times you get a a fit of the moment or fit of the week kind of thing, where because certain attributes work better with a certain style, everybody, like when Star Wars: The Old Republic first launched, everybody wanted to play a Sith sorcerer because their build and their abilities and their attributes were better in PvP than any other class. So you had a lot of that. So allowing players to set all the attributes causes, they're saying, bug issues, but it also causes gameplay issues. If you jump into PvP and you get ganked by 12 sorcerers, you're like, well, PvP sucks in this game, and then you don't want to do it. Once somebody tries your game and they find something that they don't like, something that makes them leave the game, even if you fix that, chances of getting that player back are still very slim. Think about all the games that you've played over your lifetime and have left. How many have you gone back to as a paying customer? I'm not talking about like when you bought Monopoly, you played a little bit, and then you played it again 5 years later. I guess I'm talking about computer games, especially the online games that have a subscription. Typically whenever I leave a subscription-based game, I tend to not go back, and most people are like that. Alright, and then everybody's favorite, cosmetic attributes. So cosmetic attributes don't affect gameplay. We're talking about, clothing, boots, paint, decals, insignia on vehicles, all that kind of stuff. Nowadays, these are typically the things that you find behind a cash shop. Actually, if you've ever played PlanetSide 2, they do this very well. So here's one of the screenies from PlanetSide 2. In their shop that they call the Depot, I can buy different helmets, I can buy different accessories for my chopper, or whatever you want to call this. And they even opened up a thing where players can create new items in the game. And then if it gets approved and things, the player can actually make money off of people buying that item. Now, you have to be careful with something like this because you may end up doing something like this, or where I can now pay for a weapon that gives me an advantage over somebody that did not pay for a weapon, and we call that pay to win. And then other issues besides pay to win are things that break your immersion in the game. Games like Terra Online are supposed to be fantasy games, and yet you can buy swimsuits and swim accessories like this rubber ducky in the cash shop, and then you can put them on over your armor so that only those appear. So you're out there hunting in the woods and you're killing things, and all of a sudden here comes some elf chick in a bikini, and you're like, well, how does that fit into the world that I'm in? So it kind of breaks that magic circle. Alright, so I think we talked enough about cosmetic attributes. And then there's creative play. You want to allow players to save and reload things that they make in the game. Games that allow you to create things but not save them don't typically tend to do very well in the market. And as far as computerized creative play goes, they've got it broken down into constrained creative play and freeform creative play. And then constrained creative play is your typical game. You could be limited. There are limits to what you can do. There are artificial constraints imposed upon you. You can only go through or explore so much of the world, then you're blocked off by mountain ranges. You can only purchase so many things for your house because there could be a limit to the house items, or it could be a money issue. You have to earn so much money to do things that it kind of becomes impossible or very hard, not really worth the effort. So most games really fit the constrained creative play model. Depending on, if World of Warcraft, when you go into different things, you can only do what the programmer imagined you can do. Alright, then they jump in here. At the bottom here, they mention about these, you can have aesthetic requirements, and then they talk about how to put in some kind of aesthetic rules. You may put in something where they can only have certain colors, or allow people to vote for different things. Hey, which one of these models is the best, or who decorated their house the best, things like that. So freeform creative play is a little bit different. We typically refer to this as a sandbox mode. And think of games like Minecraft. In Minecraft there are no quests. You start there, you boom, you're placed there, and you can do whatever you want. There are no resources. You can mine till your heart's content, and dig up as many diamonds as you need, and then some. If you play Gary's mod, you can whatever they have in the list, you can do. You can create all kinds of scenes. You can have spawn whatever you want. You can make real unrealistic weapons that kill everything in one shot. whatever you do. So there's usually no rewards for creative play other than that creativity that you get to unlock or unleash. Some of the best games out there combine a little bit of both. There are some things that have rules, like in Minecraft. When it first started, you were kind of stuck with Steve. That was your character, and you couldn't really change his outfit or anything like that. But then later on, they added that, and then you have the regular freeform play. And then they talk about storytelling. Some people get hooked in the storytelling. A lot of people play World of Warcraft just because the story, the background story behind all that stuff, is so interesting and so deep. But then on the same token, you also have people that don't care for the story at all. They're just worried about playing their character and doing things. So anytime you're reaching out to a massive audience, everything's always a double-edged sword. There's always going to be some people that love what you did and some people that hated what you did. So any kind of decision you got to make, is it going to be this or this? Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. So you got to kind of have a thick skin when you get into game development. So they talk about you can build some storytelling elements, add stories to the forums, have captured images to assist you in that ability. Like, so if somebody's reading the story, you've got some images in there with that. And Eve, if you've ever played Eve Online or seen some of their stuff, they do really good about this. I think every week or every month they release a story. They've got a couple books based on the universe. And every story always has like a main picture and things like that. They have a magazine that they publish with stories. And a lot of it's player-driven or player-created content, which is kind of cool. Alright, game modifications. When we're talking about single-player games, to extend the life of your game, you typically want to put in some kind of modding system to allow people to modify your game. Now, the benefits of this are obviously it's popular with your core gamers. More people are going to play your game for longer if they can change things up and maybe tailor it to their needs, or if they can keep adding new content. And then that also obviously extends the lifetime of the game. And then on the bad side, you have no control over the mods that people make. So people can create mods that put the reputation of your game at risk. Sometimes mods are so good or create so much interest and attention that the mod then turns into a full-fledged game. Team Fortress was originally a mod for Counter-Strike, and somebody made the Team Fortress mod. And then that became so popular, and Valve saw that they actually brought in one of the guys that worked on that and gave him a job, and then he was the lead designer of Team Fortress 2. So other games, when we talk about mods and we talk about single-player games, getting away from the online thing, Skyrim, if you've ever played the Elder Scrolls series, one of the reasons that a lot of people like that game is that there are so many mods that you can download for it. You can add missions, you can add new weapons to help you along if you're having trouble, you can add new companions to the game to help you. There's a ton of mods for that. So even after you finish the single player story, you can always add some different mods, and then you can play it again a different way, or you can just add mods that add new missions and stuff for you to do and new adventures to explore. Now, on the other hand, if you go to, well, some mods can make your game get a bad reputation or something like that. So if I go here to Curse and look at their Skyrim mods, I can see that the number one mod is nude females. Well, then, and you can see it's been downloaded almost 1.2 million times. So then people are like, oh, I don't play that. That's the pervy game where dudes run around naked and stuff like that. So in Skyrim's case, obviously, the mods have done very well for that game, and there's a lot of people that still play it today. There are graphic mods and things like that. But you always have to kind of watch, because there are some people that do a mod that gives your game a bad reputation. Alright, level editors. Level editors allow people to construct new levels for games, which obviously extend the life of the game. And besides levels, it just might be parts and stuff. Like I play a game called Kerbal Space Program. And in there, you've got these little dudes, and you're trying to send them out to space to these different planets, and you have to build the ships, and you have to stage the rockets, and it has real physics. You don't just point to the planet and go. You have to create an orbit, and then you have to extend your orbit to get there, and that kind of stuff. So after I played the the game itself kind of to completion, then I was like, oh, well, wouldn't it be cool if I had this and that? And then I started going and started downloading some of these mods that add new pieces. And now I have a mod. Well, back then, I had a mod that allowed me to mine different planets for fuel. So basically, I could have one ship and then land on a planet and then mine for fuel and then refill up and then go to another planet and mine for fuel, that kind of thing. So it was cool to actually extend the gameplay, which is why I have 300 hours in that game. But I digress. So if you're going to do something like that, you typically have to provide the tools. They do like a level toolkit or something like that, a developer's toolkit, something to allow the players to make changes to the game. All right, bots. Typically when we think about bots, we think, oh crap, that's bad. Because we have bots that are out there and they're spamming forums and, hey, come here and buy our gold and that kind of weird stuff. Or they're scamming all the resources. You can make a resource bot that just plays your character and just mines the same resource over and over again, things like that. But in some games, bots are essential. Like I play TF2 every once in a while, and in TF2 it's a shooter game, and it's usually like 12 on 12 people. Well, if there's not enough people on the server can auto-generate bots to take the place of people, and then as more people jump in, the bots kind of disappear, so that the first 5 players that get in can actually have a full kind of fun game. And then sometimes players create tougher opponents that are actually included in the game. If a game is too easy, maybe I want to make a bot that make it harder, things like that. So to wrap this up, things you should understand, players express themselves through their avatars. Some people are really into that. Some people hate playing a female. Some people love playing a female. Some people read the story. Some people don't read the story. Some people love adding mods and stuff and building onto games. And if you've ever read anything about the history of Valve in the last 8 years, they hire a lot of people from the community that work on mods or different parts of their game. They had a guy that made a big campaign for Left 4 Dead. He got hired. They had a guy that made a video, Scout vs. Witch. He got hired. The guy that made TF2 or made Team Fortress, or one of the guys that worked on Team Fortress, got hired in to make Team Fortress 2. So a lot of these companies aren't really hiring college graduates. They're looking more for people that are actually doing things out there in the world today, where they can see their work and say, hey, I need to hire this guy because he has talent. I don't have to see his college diploma to know he has talent, that kind of stuff. All right, so that kind of wraps it up. Again, if you have any questions or anything, let me know. But let's talk about your assignments this week. All right, this week in Angel, under assignments, you've got a discussion. And this is kind of different. There is no set post for this discussion. It's just a free write discussion. Just anything you want to talk about gaming, or the game industry, or something. I hate pay to win, and here's why. Just make sure you can't just throw out a sentence and say, I hate pay to win games. You need to give us why. What do you hate about those? So try to elaborate. Maybe there's something new that's released. Maybe there's a new game that you're looking for, just last week, XCOM 2 was announced, and I'm really excited about that because I love that game. So I might put that in there, and I might write, hey, here's why I like this game, because when I play it, that kind of stuff. So just make sure that you, just make sure you elaborate on whatever you say. No one sentence post, please. All right, and then there's an assignment for Game Worlds. And here you're going to talk about a game world that you were involved in or that you like. Maybe you played WoW years ago and you like the game world. And then you're going to explain, what parts, what was the physical dimension of the game, what was the environmental, how did the game progress, and the temporal, the time theory, and that kind of stuff. So if you've never played an online game or a computer game, you can obviously pick console games, and if you haven't done any of that stuff, then you can pick a board game, I guess. Might be a little hard to explain the dimensions of a game like Cards Against Humanity, but I digress. Alright, then after that, you've got your quiz. So 3 assignments this week, and then I do believe that this week also you're finishing up your project. You have the final one that's due on the 25th, or Friday. So remember, if you have any questions, make sure you email me and let me know. Other than that, have a good week.